Hola, buenos días a todos y a todas. Quería comenzar en castellano simplemente dando las gracias, agradeciendo al comité organizador de este congreso, muy en especialmente también a Mercedes Arriaga por organizar este punto de encuentro que tan necesarios son, ¿no? Y que tanto nos gustan a las que, por lo menos a las que nos dedicamos a esto, ¿no? Muchísimas gracias. Okay, well, so now I have to speak in English, obviously. The title of my paper is Womanism, Resilience and Violence in Black British Literature, Bernardine Evaristo and Aminatta Forna. Just as a way of introduction, I must say that throughout this paper, I pretend to introduce two very popular Black British women writers, Aminatta Forna and Bernardine Evaristo, who share some similitudes in some aspects of her lives and works. For example, both of them fight against different kinds of violence against women in general, and also Black women in particular in some of their texts. Womanism and resilience also play a very important role in these two authors' writings. Throughout this paper, I will consider some of the essays published in their collections, The Window Seats, Notes from a Life in Monsieur by Forna, and Girl, Woman, Other, that is a novel by Bernardine Evaristo. And I will do this with the mere intention of showing some of the cases of violence and important roles played by womanism, and also resilience found in these two works. Well, let me start just by offering a brief description of both authors and some of the different characteristics they share. Well, Aminatta Forna is a Scottish writer raised in Sierra Leone and Great Britain, and Bernardine Evaristo is an Anglo-Nigerian author. Both of them are women authors who belong to the literary category catalogue as Black British literature. The interest of this term has considerably increased in the last 2 decades, becoming current in the 1970s when describing writings by authors, and I quote, based in Britain, but with origins in former British colonies in Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean. Nowadays, this term, Black British literature, has woken up a deep interest between many scholars, experts, and researchers around the world. These two writers have in common many things, apart from belonging to this literary category. They also share the origins, the multiculturalism, and their strength in defending and fighting against the injustice and inequality towards women, poor, and Black people, particularly, exploring diverse aspects of the African diaspora, considering not only past, present, but also real and imagined. Aminatta Forna is a professor of creative writing at Bath Spa University, while Bernardine Evaristo teaches the same subject at Brunel University. They also share the recognition of millions of readers over the world and the characteristic of being award-winning authors of their works, including novels, short stories, essays, poetry, etc. Something that we could say that explains that their writings inspire a pluralist and also an egalitarian society. Well, I would like to talk now just very briefly about Aminatta Forna collection of essays that I have chosen. As I said before, the title is The Window Seats, Notes from a Life in Motion. And this collection was published exactly 1 year ago, in May 2021. Well, in this Forna's work, well, we could say that Forna's work in general And concretely, in this collection of essays, concretely in number 15, they say number 15 is also an excellent contribution to the discourses about the embodied experiences of women in the public space, focusing on a Black intersectional feminist perspective. This happens in the essay entitled Power Walking, which is an expansive and impressive essay about the politics, about moving around the world, not only as a woman, but as a Black one. This essay occupies a space on a street in different locations. In London, West Africa, and also in America. Power Walking is composed of 5 sections called Pretty Girl, Walking, Not All Men, or Matriarchy, and the last one is called Whose Space, Loose, Quiz, and Other Places. Throughout all of them, Forna points out the different experiences and some we could say uncomfortable situations she has lived in. The author writes this collection while she gives the reader many details about her own experiences, sailing across the violence appearing in front of her between racism and misogyny in public spaces. The author describes 10 episodes of uncomfortable and violent situations she has lived as a Black woman in diverse and very different areas where she has been living along the years. Like, for example, London, as I said before, she describes some unfortunate anecdotes. She lived in Chelsea, in Camden Town, in Kensington, and also in West Africa and even in America. Well, like, I don't have a lot of time, as you know. Everything will be in the final test that will be published later on. But now I just wanted to share with you some quotations, some quotes, where you can easily realize the violence and different examples of violence that this author has written about. I'm going to read a quote where the reader can easily appreciate that she is suffering verbal violence. And I quote, "The woman who complains may well find herself being told she should be flattered, that she is lucky men find her attractive. Where are you going, baby? Smile, little lady. Shh! Want some of this? Look at the ass on that. You wouldn't be able to walk if... till it bleeds." Well, another example of this kind of verbal violence that this own author suffers in the first person is going to be reflected in this following quote. But in this case, I would like you to appreciate that she's suffering this because not only for being a woman, but a Black woman. And I quote, "I'm walking along the King's Road in Chelsea, London. It is 1980s. 3 men are coming towards me. They are white, dressed in tight jeans and cap-sleeve t-shirts. The first man, as he passes, looks me in the eye and says, 'You are a pretty girl.' The second one smirks, but says nothing. The third one leans into my face and breathes, 'Nigger!' What happened afterwards? Do you imagine that the first man berated the third man? Do you think they argued? And whose side did the second man take? None of that happened. And she finished this quotation by saying that the three men laughed. Well, some aggressions she suffered when she attacked by black men, as we have just seen in the first quote, and by a white men, are just mere examples of sexual violence. I would like to quote just an example where she was attacked by a black man, and I quote: "A man in Camden Town pulls out a knife and threatens to stab me in the stomach. A crowd, mostly white, gathers around me and watches to see what will happen. The man is black, and so am I. The standoff goes on for long seconds. Do you want to fuck with me? Do you want to fuck with me? Even then, the ghost of a joke crosses my mind. Well, I thought I'd made it perfectly clear. Another man, also black and wearing dreads, moves through the audience. He walks up to us both, looks at the man with the knife and says, 'What's the problem, brother?' I never see that man again, not even to thank him, because the friend with whom I am walking has found a policeman and my eraser flees." Well, it's a very strong situation. Well, as I don't have a lot of time, and I would like to introduce very briefly Bernardine Evaristo just by showing some of the characteristics her novel has. I would like to say that this novel was a prize winner, the novel by Bernardine Evaristo, entitled Girl, Woman, Other, that was published in 2019. This novel was a prize winner with the Man Booker 2019 prize, together with another novel by Margaret Atwood. It is a novel composed by 5 chapters and an epilogue where the reader can find 12 stories of very different women whom the author gives distinct and vibrant voices, who deal with feminism, racism, prejudice, and gender identity. In this book, Evaristo speaks directly about the reality of being a woman in a widely anti-feminist world, where life is more difficult if you are a black or lesbian woman, or even a transgender person. That's why the concept of womanism is going to be very very present throughout the whole novel, especially in some of the characters appearing here. In some of these women's stories, violence is quite visible. We have deeply analyzed some of the short stories, and in the written article derived from this paper, a deep study about it will be offered. Here, as a way of example, I wanted to offer some quotes reflecting violence of men towards women are shown, as it happens, for example, in Dominic's story. That is concretely in chapter 3, where the reader learned about the sexual violence that one character named Singa suffers at the hands of her mother's boyfriend, or the beast, as she called him. And I'm going to read it for you. Her mother found work in a chicken factory, was idiotically convinced she could cure him of his addictions and make a life for her children with him. Her futile attempts to curtail his addictions resulted in being beaten up, so often she gave up trying to change him and fell into the drug life herself. What began badly became worse as Singa found herself being badly raised by 2 junkies whose priority was not her and her brother. Eventually, the inevitable happened. When she reached puberty, there being early signs inappropriate touching and comments. She'd been too young to decipher and later too vulnerable to ward off. She had her virginity stolen while her mother and brother were out shopping, and she stayed in to do her homework. Well, as a consequence of the sexual abuse Singa suffers, she will hate deeply all men and retires herself to live in a woman's commune, becoming a lesbian. We could say that this character is probably one of the strongest one in defining womanism. Okay, and she when she meets and fall in love with Dominic, Ninsa wants to demonstrate that life, living just with women in a womanist context is really good for all the women, just like a way of protection of men. The author, Bernardine Evaristo, explained perfectly how her character changes and affects deeply to the relation she maintains with the main protagonist of this story, Dominic, who becomes Ninsa's victim due to the continuous psychological abuse and grade of submission she suffers at the hand of Singa. The one who was her beloved girlfriend, the one who once, and I quote, was a fairy angel sent to help her become a better version of herself. Well, so very briefly, because I have to finish. I'm talking too much. Everything has changed in their love relationship. Singa reproaches everything Dominic does and even manipulates her life continually. Dominic starts being aware of that, and I wanted to quote something just to finish. I would like you to see this. Well, it says, why did Singa think being in love with her meant she had to give up her independence and submit completely? Wasn't that being like a male chauvinist? Dominic felt like an altered version of herself after a while, her mind foggy, emotions primal, senses hating. Well, I have already prepared a lot of quotations and some more comments, but I'm saying that I have no time at all. I have to finish just by saying thank you. Thank you again. Thank you very much for your attention. And just in case you need something from me, feel free to text me or send an email or whatever. Thank you so much. Thank you.